We're back. We don't belong, but I think maybe we do. Guys, girls, freaky kids of all genders, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. And obviously, it's so cool to get to hang out with you every week. I love it.
We solve life.
Yeah, we're going to solve life for you today, and it's going to be easy. And our Venmo is below, our PayPal is below. So when we've solved your life, just send us a little love. Here's where my head's at. On the way up to the office, I was listening to the Lex Fridman podcast, and the podcast itself is not what's important for me right now. It's the intro he gave about how you can't get to the real truth if you're sort of like wading through memes and you're relying on media and social media. And I just, I think in this day and age, for someone to be so resolute about wanting to see both sides and wanting to know the truth and being willing to talk to people from both sides of the aisle and stuff, it was really inspiring to me today. And so that sort of got me thinking about the kind of mechanisms within each of us that would allow us to be so pulled to one side or the other and so kind of easily manipulated, right? And I'd love to know what you think, but this is going to sound like pop psychology, so whatever. I think a lot of it has to do with the trauma, that we have to go through as kids. And I just kind of want to get your take on that.
I love it. Yes. So before I go off,
yeah,
I want to preface with, I think that humans are actually way more resilient than we in the West turn them out to be or make them out to be.
Yeah.
And I sometimes, like, I don't think everything needs to be solved actively. I think things can be solved by creating a new world or new belief or new action, behavior, etc. But for me, this is a very active topic right now. As I am in this. I've been away with my husband, with my fiance. I call him husband, right? This weekend, and we had a glorious. We solve life too. Like we go history, we go psychology, our own history, our ancestors. And he's like the first, and he will be the last relationship that I'm like, all the previous one were fucked up because I chose a fucked up person or I wasn't willing, right? Yeah. And I was constantly angry. So I was constantly mistrusting everyone.
Yeah.
And resulting in that some people, when I hear other people talk about my ex-partners, they're having a completely different reality. Right? Like they're like
that in my own life as well.
How could you? Because this happened and this happened and this, and I have all these evidences, right?
Yeah.
Concluding that for me personally, I was looking at the world really angry. Yeah. I was looking at the lens of trauma.
Yeah.
And I was therefore looking at the world at why nothing would work out. Like he is such a high integrity, high communication person now, and like it sometimes, I notice that when there's any friction that I want to, like, automatically I want to jump in what I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice myself wanting to jump into that. And I'll give the most silly example, right? We had the chicken feed and the chicken feed goes into chicken bins. And he said something like, did you forget to do the chicken bins? And my mind goes like, who the fuck do you think you are? What you mean? I forgot to do the chicken bins. And I had to, and again, he didn't ask it rudely. He didn't use, like, he just asked me, did you forget to do the chicken bins? Yeah. But it came from my mom, right? Yeah. The trauma is mom who said, who gave like, you're never good enough. Everything you do is not good enough. You like, it doesn't matter how much effort you put in, it's still in subpar. That's what triggered it. And I'm like seeing my head spin.
Yeah.
I've learned not to react, but I see my head spin. And I'm like, and I literally, my face goes like this. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh no, that face was at me. That wasn't even at you.
Now you're in a fight with your mom, although he doesn't know it.
I'm having a whole experience here.
Man, so God, that whole, like, let's call it unconscious projection, right? Where it just happens.
Just there.
Yeah, it just happens. And it feels so real. It feels so damn real.
Right.
Like for me, lately, I've really been looking at how that sort of classic, I don't know if it's Freudian, but that abandonment wound thing shows up. And so just a little primer for anybody listening. If you're the kind of person that finds yourself in relationships where it seems like the other person's disappearing once you commit, like energetically, I mean, maybe physically, but for certainly energetically and emotionally, there's a very predictable pattern where you feel your experience is that they sort of convinced you to come out into the open and convinced you to lower your guard. And then suddenly it's like they're just gone. There's actually a lot of work and research done on this. It's not just you. The bad news is that probably means you have what's called anxious attachment.
Right. So attachment styles, right?
Yeah.
Is the
And
umbrella.
ask me how I know, by the way, because this was me all my life.
Same.
There is, I just want to say this before I forget, although it's jumping ahead a little bit. There's this beautiful analogy that I either created or heard somewhere. I may be getting credit for this. I can't remember for sure. But the true test for the warrior is to stand at the edge of the lake, right? Throw your weapons into the lake. And when the waves and ripples rise up and come at you, just stand there and let them pass. And that's the moment when you have sort of broken free of it. But the problem is the ripples look an awful lot like reality. And more importantly, they feel an awful lot like reality, right? And so I say all that because weirdly, I was doing a whole bunch of talking to ChatGPT. And I'm like, so what I want you to do is draw from your entire lexicon of psychology, psychiatry, therapy stuff, modalities and everything. And just kind of let's get clear on the ways that the two sides connect with each other. Because for me, it's really kind of uncomfortable to say so, but in a really messed up way, so many of my committed relationships were a little boy seeking approval from his mom that he was never going to get.
Absolutely.
Oh, God damn it.
And same here, right? Same. Mommy, please approve me. And mommy had very masculine energy. So that's how it looked for me in men. But please affirm me.
Yeah. And to wit, my mom was, I would only learn this in my 40s, textbook avoidant. Textbook. And if you really want to get we want to start talking about owning our own shit in this conversation, here's the part that's maybe the hardest. It's actually probably not your parents' fault either.
Oh, no. 100%.
This is where the generational thing comes into play, right?
Plus circumstances, like actual environment, right?
Right.
More economic situations. Right. Because economic scarcity creates anxious attachment style, right? Because these attachment styles show up in our money, how we show up with friends, how we show up for ourselves.
Yeah. I think things like the Great Depression in the United States, World War I and II, these sent what we might call psychic ripples out. Oh, there we go. That through the lake of all of us, right? And so
now everyone's anxious.
Yeah. And so there's this idea that since we're diving down we're going down this water slide head first. Here's the reality for anybody listening, for you, for me. We were victimized as kids. And so this is a hard thing to balance. And here's why I say that, because up until a certain age, which is a little different for each of us, but it falls within, let's say 15 to 18, 15 to 21, you don't have any agency. You don't have the ability to really sort of make your own decisions and follow through with them. And so you are, in a sense, victimized because you have no control over what's happening to you. Right? It's especially at the youngest ages where the nervous system is really imprinted with ideas. So 0 to 7.
May I ask something around that?
Yeah.
So how much of it is victimized versus a mismatch of love languages?
Well, the reason I choose the word victimized is because, again, it's a question of you don't have any agency against whatever it is, right? And I also use victimized strategically because the whole idea of victimization, victim tormentor is so in our collective narrative these days. And so I say it also so that it's a way that people can sort of lock in and go, oh, okay.
Sure.
It might not be the best word.
Sure.
But so the thing is, we are at the whims and the mercy of the grown-ups who are either protecting us or tormenting us or not protecting us or whatever.
Absolutely.
And that impacts our worldview. And it typically, you could think of each person as an onion, right? Or layers, like I like a planet better, but an onion works too, where you've got this center. And then over time, you get layer after layer after layer after layer that builds up around it. As those layers build up, we get further and further from having sort of a direct connection to that experience we had when we were young. And new developmental levels in the brain come into play, and things get more and more intellectualized and reasoned. But so I have this this sort of family crest that I gave my family. And it's really for me and my son and my father posthumously and my grandfather. And it's honor the primal, seek the divine. And the reason I chose that is because there is such a social and cultural sort of forget about all that ugly shit. Just go for what's good. You know, in the spiritual community, you might call it spiritual bypassing. You might call it not doing your shadow work, whatever. But you've got to like straddle both sides. You have to. It's just part of the human experience.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem with those layers, is they just move you further and further from the primacy and the direct connection to these certain parts of you.
Yeah.
And so that is the setting the stage for this idea that you were in some way, and I'll again use the word victimized. But here's the thing about the human experience. And this is what's so hard for people. You have to accept that and accept that any healing is 100% your responsibility.
Right. And I really,
this is for all of us.
And really want to emphasize that there's such a, so when you feel any version of victimized, you're seeking blame, but blame becomes completely irrelevant, right? Like, because we can blame and we can righteously, I'm using air quotes, right? We can righteously blame, you know, external party, circumstance, environment, but becomes irrelevant to what is your responsibility to deal with it.
Yeah. The blame thing is subtle, because here's been my experience, at least. There's a fleeting moment in your process of learning about yourself where blame can be a helpful tool, especially if you really had trauma, because for a lot of us, it's very hard to blame the parent. But at a certain point in your evolution, you absolutely need to take it from somehow this is all my fault, even though I was a kid, to yes, mom and dad did do this.
Yes.
Right. But like everything else, one of the challenges is it's so easy to get stuck there and just spin, right?
And I've done a therapy trajectory 3 years ago with especially to family systems. Because I can point out exactly where mom is coming from for me, or where my, you know, external, and there's a loyalty, right? So not wanting. And there's a third way where it's like, me as an adult am perceiving my parent and pointing out all the things she did wrong as if I know better.
Right.
which
Yeah.
a very stinky. Is that's a fucking dangerous slope to go down because your mom lived. Our moms were living the first time too. It's the
Yeah.
first time living ever.
Yeah. Right.
But
Exactly.
they should have known.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about my mom and then all the other people in the cult, it wasn't until again I was in my 40s that I realized these were all 20 somethings.
Yeah, baby.
They were stoned, they were having kids, they were on LSD, they had a head full of just impossible sort of ideology and
Hope, right?
hope.
Want dreams for the world.
Yeah, but like a hope that has one foot in total illusion.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And so this is what I'm talking about, where you got to call the devil, but you can't get stuck there once you do it, and that's.
And I have to add to the illusion.
Yeah.
So we can only call it illusion in hindsight, because if it had worked, it would have been a success. Right?
It's
all
one of those
success
things.
And goals are rooted in illusion.
That's
but we can only hindsight be like, oh no, that was really dumb.
Right. Yeah. That's an amazing point, because if you think about it, everything humanity has created was once an illusion.
And like total, not just a little bit.
No,
like
it was just a complete
total delusional
fantasy. And then somehow somebody made it real.
Right.
In fact, I think from the cosmic view, that is literally our function.
It's the definition. Like the difference between a genius and a crazy person is its result over time.
Yeah, it's the execution. Yeah, totally.
The only difference.
Totally true. Yeah. So since we're really going down into this, you just said that you just brought up the slippery slope thing. What I want to contribute there is all of self-help, all of personal improvement, all of personal discovery. It's just a series of slippery slopes. Yeah. You could get stuck at any of them and plummet down into some sort of what you might call self-serving fantasy.
Sure.
Right. The idea that you were victimized, easy to get stuck there. The idea that you do have to at some point ascribe responsibility where it belongs, easy to get stuck there. More commonly is the for some reason people get spun out more in the whole, like what I call the premature enlightenment thing. The thing where you don't face any of the stuff that's uncomfortable, but you just like skip right to forgiving everybody. And then you're weird at cocktail parties because you're smiling, but everybody can see the strain in your eyes and, hear the sort of lunacy in the things you're saying, or just the cognitive dissonance between how you're trembling and shaking and talking about love and light,
Well, I feel like the challenge with a lot of the movements, or like the branches that get momentum, is that it becomes a one all solution for everyone. And I'm going to use some extreme examples, right? Like I would say that a Alex Hormozy or a Elon Musk could use a little bit spirituality, right? Just a little bit. I love their hustle, bro, but they could use a little bit spirituality, versus the spiritual people could use a little fucking Alex Hormozy and Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Right?
A little.
So, because if you are already like if you're already go-getter and everything you're easy to cast blame on yourself, then more responsibility isn't necessarily the solution, right? There needs to be a lightness to it, versus when you're only love and gaslight. That's how I call it. When you're only love and gaslight, you could use a little fucking grounding, right? And let's get to the behavior.
Yeah. It is, in the time that I've been here on this planet, at least this time around, it seems like there's a very valid perspective from which you could make the argument that life is just a series of distractions that other people will sort of co-sign and agree with you on because they're stuck in it too.
100%.
And certainly the path of the person who's committed to figuring themselves out is littered with that stuff. It's just it's Pinocchio and the island of the he goes to the island with all the misfits
with the boys, yeah.
With the boys, and they all turn into donkeys over time because they're just stuck in this thing or that thing. It's excess, or
Peter Pan and Neverland.
Or Peter Pan and Neverland, yeah.
We're floating. We're only floating.
Yeah, all we do is float around and fly, and we fight pirates.
Only pleasure, only fun.
Yeah.
Only adventure.
Yeah. In fact, you can find that theme cleverly written into most fables, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And so we see that now too. You know, we see that right now today with these preposterous oversimplifications. Or like I'm gonna totally throw some haymakers at the political left here, because I think it's different for different people, but some people are just caught up in the vitriol, and there's this certain reward that you get from spewing venom, right? There's some sort of moral superiority that comes with it, whether it's earned or not. And so it's like agitated into things like vandalizing Teslas, and which is so weird. It's like,
look, one thing about that, I love that. Look, I love that that's happening. Not that I love the happening of it, because again, if you, and I'm gonna be very clear on it, if you decide to vandalize any of my property, you'll meet Jesus that day.
Yeah,
it's the best. It's one-way ticket to Jesus.
Yeah,
but it's funny because Tesla owners are progressive people. They're not right-wing people.
That's exactly where I was going with this, is like, you've allowed yourself to be frothed up into such tunnel vision that it's like you're in fight or flight, and all you can see is what's that called? Binocular vision in front of you. You have no ability to assess the larger situation. And then my friends on the right who all they do all day is post these memes that are very clever summaries of, the right's position. But at the end of the day, it's like eating cotton candy. It's just empty calories that do nothing, and so I guess it must, in an opposite but equal way, sort of give you that sense of self-righteousness, right? Which brings us full circle back to what Lex Fridman was saying at the beginning of the podcast, which is like, you're never going to find the truth, accurate truth, like in the media or in social media or in the memes or anything like that. First of all, you've got to have a desire. Well, let me see. I think it probably goes like this. First of all, you have to somehow come to the understanding that nothing pro-social in any way is gained by doing that. It feels good in the moment, but it provides nothing except possibly negative things. And then once you get there, this part's so hard for me. You have to find in yourself a desire to rise above or sidestep, or in some way not get caught up in the binary of it all, right?
And the way that's being, even like a great analogy is actual what we intake nutrition, right?
Yeah.
It's so good to eat a chocolate, whatever, empty calories. Fuck yeah. Give me my Diet Coke, my cancer in a can, feel good in the moment. Okay, but how do I bystep it and then go through a phase where it's actually really not feeling good? Not because my body isn't, but I have to detox almost.
Yeah. Yeah, it is detoxing.
And then learn what actual living is. Actual food, actually nutrition, mental, physical.
Yeah.
All around us.
Last week, we were talking briefly about how funny it is that throughout history, it's been so we know that humanity gets better over time. This is inarguable. You'd have to really be committed to looking like an asshole if you were going to try to argue against this. All you have to do is look at things like all-cause mortality, increase in economic power in third world, like the data's there.
Everything.
And yet, overwhelmingly, the majority of people are convinced that we're going to hell in a handbasket. So much so in extreme cases like South Korea, where their birth rate is plummeting because women don't think it's worth it to have kids.
Here in the West too now.
In the West too, but not at the same level as over there. But yeah, so like it it's so fascinating to me how the tiny tip of the spear, 5% maybe of people are so potent that they can pull us up to, here's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Brad Pitt in Fight Club when he's talking to Edward Norton, and he goes, "And I will drag you as usual, kicking and screaming across the finish line, and in the end, you'll thank me." And it's like, that's what this tiny, tiny fraction of humanity has done every time.
Mm-hmm.
Forever, this has been
Mm-hmm.
the case.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that tells me is that we have always been susceptible to these sort of what you and I today might call like doomsday porn, right? Just doom porn. Everything's fucked. Everything's going to hell. There's not even any purpose anymore. But of course there's purpose. Of course there's purpose. Like all you have to do is step outside your door on a 72-degree day.
How much of that do you think? And I'm cautious even though I love Jordan Peterson, I'm cautious of sounding like him. But how much do you think that the perceived lack of purpose has to do with there not being religion or active spirituality?
Yes, I want to get into this. So it's funny because probably 3 years ago, I wouldn't have taken that question seriously. But today, and I'm not a religious person.
Mm-hmm. Me neither.
But yeah. But I do think that there's huge utility and value to the human experience if we can choose to put ourselves in a deferential position to some sort of benevolent higher authority. Benevolent being the operative word here, because what I think I'm seeing is with the decline in religion, which actually I'm told it's surging again. Mm-hmm. I'm told that it's surging again. But what it seemed to me I was seeing was people making the state fill that hole for them.
And Hollywood.
Yeah, and Hollywood. And so I'm not skilled enough or I don't have enough understanding of Christianity in biblical terms to probably get this right, but I'm sure there's an analogy there where you forego devotion to the Holy Spirit and instead these evil forces step in and pervert things for you. I'm sure there are stories like that, right? And that's really what I thought we were seeing. Now, let's go totally off to, did you ever see the movie Babylon?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank God. So everybody seemed to hate that movie. And
because I didn't understand it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm watching it like, first of all, this is a Renaissance painting masterpiece for starters.
Absolutely.
Second of all, I can't believe Hollywood let somebody make this movie. But here's the thing. Here's where it gets so just crazy to me. So in a way, of course, Hollywood let that film, which totally reveals Hollywood's soul, bare, because Hollywood is completely amoral and shameless. Mm-hmm. It's just 100%. It only cares about, I guess, making the movies and the money. And if you doubt that, then look how fast after Trump won and Harris lost, the return of the lone American action hero movie came back. It was within months. It was within fucking months. And Hollywood has moved completely away from overt messaging, right?
Yeah, okay, go on. I have a question about that. Yeah.
But things were getting so preachy and so self-righteous, frankly, during the Biden administration. And they were moving that way previously, but they just went completely like two dogs fucking shamelessly in the street. You know, it was just so transparent and so not even trying to hide. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Oscars put DEI requirements on films that could be submitted for an Oscar. No matter how good your movie was, if you didn't meet these quotas, you couldn't get an Oscar. And now they've completely pulled that back. And so to me, what that says about Hollywood is that Hollywood is, in religious terms, I think you'd call it a false idol.
Yeah, yes to that. And my where I'm kind of questioning, so
Yeah.
I don't think that, or I don't perceive Hollywood to have changed because of political reasons. I think Hollywood had to catch on because it's not its main source of entertainment anymore.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't think it was political either. That's the point I'm making, is that it's completely amoral. It only cares, it only cares about serving what it thinks is the hot marketing demographic.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, fully agree with that.
That's what
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
In fact, I was I can't get enough of listening to Mark Andreessen.
Okay.
He's just so illuminating, because he's got friends at the top of Hollywood, friends at the top of tech. He's friends with world leaders. And in the last 2 years, he's just decided to just come out and tell the truth, or his truth, or whatever you want to call it. And he was saying to me, he was saying that there was this weird dichotomy in Hollywood, right? Where nobody was really, of the people that he's talking to, nobody's really morally invested in the DEI and the ESG stuff. They don't.
Wait, which is the ESG?
It's the same thing as DEI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's equity, something, and it's ESG is the scoring system for how compliant you are with DEI.
I see. I see.
Equity and social governance. Yeah. Equity. Okay. So, but he's telling a tale of like being at dinner parties where nobody really is like dying on that hill. They're just going along. And so they start to see that, wow, these movies are just not bringing in box office dollars, right? And they worked out a code which is, we've got to make dad films again. We've got to get dads back to Hollywood, back to the movies. And lo and behold, go on YouTube and pick any one of those like 30-minute upcoming movie trailer videos. It's all Jason Statham killing everybody in the most macho way possible. It's all, you know what I mean? It's all
I definitely think
chases and
like masculinity. And
like
the characteristics without romanticizing them, right? Because Hollywood used to do that too, where regardless of what we think of DEI, but like white people playing the Egyptian is kind of odd. It's kind of silly, right?
It's
so
totally
the pendulum swung the other way, where it's now only non-white people are playing like
everything.
The founding fathers,
right? Yeah,
you're like
exactly. And so like I just really think that it is such a telling reveal on the true spirit of Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Right. And I thought that Babylon was the greatest example of that.
So good.
Ever of all time. Like the way it starts with the most decadent Hollywood party. And then it ends with that depraved, demonic, horrible underground party that I couldn't even watch hardly because it was so brutal. And Tobey Maguire, of all people, being the scariest guy I had seen on screen in 10 years, Right. Yeah. And and
like how nonchalant everything was there, right? Like
yeah, exactly. And how like the machine just keeps cranking.
Yeah.
It turns you all into sausage over time. Yeah. There's that beautiful scene where Brad Pitt, as an aging movie star, confronts the Hollywood gossip reporter, and she just tells him point blank. She's like, I don't remember the words, but she basically said, your time has come and gone. The machine will trudge on. It's just how it is. Yeah. And he goes home and shoots himself. But here's the thing. He'll then go make a movie that's totally Hollywoody, And as much as I love the guy, he will cling to every shred of fame and relevance he can until it's gone.
I wonder, like, because it's one of those things when people learn about a system or a system gets revealed and they have this like urge or desire to either fight it or change it. Like you, in order to be able to do that, you need to be part of, need to become part of that system to a certain degree, right? And I wonder, like, during becoming a part of that system, if you lose what you were going in for.
I think you do.
Right.
And here's why I think that. I think that just statistically, it's less likely that 98% of people who go to Hollywood and become stars already have social and political points of view that are 100% orthodoxy of the left.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It just doesn't make sense. It's just unlikely at a statistical level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, some farm girl from Indiana who wants to be a big star probably has a little bit of an inherited sense of the value of hard work and conservative ideals, but you get there and you sort of just pick up in the way that we pick things up, that the more that you go along and get along, the better your career will be.
Yeah.
You know, and like pre-Harvey Weinstein, you might have to suck a cock or two to get your big break. And yet Hollywood trudged on, so everybody was obviously doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and even like that, so this is the thing, right? I'm from East fucking Europe, right? Like we are taught that the currency of beauty, sensuality, sexuality in a very, like it just is, right? Like
it's matter of fact over there.
Right. It's like if you need to suck your way up or fuck your way up, and like, okay, then you do you. Right? Like it is. Because that only works still, because those systems only work with two people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The one wanting to give you the thing and you having to do the thing to get the thing.
Oh, Bara. Yeah. That really puts a lot of the sort of, I'm gonna get crucified for saying this, but that really exposes some of the sort of self-righteous hypocrisy of the Me Too thing. Absolutely. Right? You didn't have to do anything with Harvey Weinstein.
Absolutely.
You didn't have to. Yeah.
Right.
There was nobody with a gun to your head.
It's not discrediting that there are like very uncomfortable situations, and we could absolutely go down those too.
Sure.
But I'm going to give one example, which happened 2 years ago in the Netherlands. So in the Netherlands, we have The Voice, and I think America bought The Voice too, right? Y'all have The Voice.
We have it.
Yeah. Again, it's a Dutch production, so it's Endemol. And on The Voice, we have our Dutch, celebrities.
Yeah.
Which was one rapper, Ali Bay, one like amazing vocalist, and one like TV program character, kind of like a neutral but good clicking rate. And what happened in hindsight is that the rapper got accused for, and they don't say harassment, they say socially unaccepting behavior. That's the word they're using, right? And I'm like, okay, what are we doing here, right? And the story is this way. The show is happening. Everyone went through their first round, got accepted, and then before the coaches, so the rapper allegedly invited the two girls to the hotel room. And he said, we're having an after party and it would be fun for, we could discuss things. And they get all dolled up. Like they are like, we are in with the rapper, and they go in. There's a lot of alcohol. It is an after party. And their story is, we got coerced into performing oral sex on them. And I'm like, baby girl, you are 19 years old. There was nothing in your way that you thought that you were there just to discuss things.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that I'm accepting that you felt you were forced to go further than you were comfortable with, but there was nothing that placed you in that position because you like the attention a little bit too fucking much. You got dolled up because if we're discussing shit, we need to get dolled up. We're fucking raunchy in a hoodie. I've been in the studio. People who do shit musically are not dolled up. We are in a hoodie and a jogging pants because we need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. So what are we doing here?
Right. Exactly.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. It's a little bit of revisionist history. Well, you know, to borrow a famous phrase that came out of Hollywood that is so wildly cross-applicable that it makes me laugh, from Star Wars Revenge of the Sith?
I've not seen any Star Wars.
Well, at any rate, the last one I watched was the one with Darth Maul in it, because he was fucking cool. But there's this line where Yoda says, like, they're trying to figure out, where did Darth Maul come from? How can we stop him? And Yoda says, always there are two, a Sith and a Master. And that's it right there. Like, always there are two. We like to give narcissists a whole bunch of shit these days, which they deserve. However, a narcissist without a sort of undeveloped empath has no power.
I'm having this argument. It's been turned into an argument this morning with a friend.
Yeah.
I prefaced this, like, if you would want to, I made it like a horrible preface. Like, if you would want to absolve, you know, like trailer parks where there's drugs, like like that type of poverty, what would she do? And she's like, well, I would want to, you know, create more opportunities for them. And I'm like, we're burning it all down. But alas, she gave an example that she had watched a show akin to Jerry Springer, some other show, but like akin to Jerry Springer. And there was a guy who was the abuser, and then there was the girl who was the abused one, right? And you know, it's a whole entertainment and theater show. And at the end of the show, so they're trying to help the abused girl and the abuser to get help. And at the end of the show, they go back home together. And it's this narrative, like, this poor girl. I'm like, no. They can only exist if they dance together.
Always there are two.
There are always two.
That's right. Always two there are.
Oh, there we go. There's always two.
And that's something, you know, like you and I have a lot of friends who might say, yo, they ain't ready for that conversation yet. And this is one of those things where it's, y'all ain't ready for that conversation. Mm-hmm. It's too psychologically satisfying to have what my therapist back in a long time ago, she said, hold on, I'll get it. Oh, please let it come back. Please, God, let it come back. Oh, yeah. In every relationship, there's the diagnosed patient and there's the, you know, diagnosed like if the diagnosed patient is you, then the other person is the one who ostensibly on the surface is somehow manipulating or taking advantage of you or whatever. And she's like, that's just not how it works. Energetically, we are opposite but equal. And that's how we come together. By the way, just for fun, you guys, that's where opposites attract comes from. Yes. It's completely misunderstood and it's completely oversimplified, but it is really about how, let's put it this way. You know the old saying, if a tree fell in the wood and nobody was around, would it make a sound?
And I'm saying no.
If a narcissist was out in the woods trying to manipulate people and there was no one around,
was it a narcissist?
Sound? Yeah, was it exactly?
The answer is no.
Right. And so now we're at the threshold of this conversation about a sort of a population-wide lack of skill in taking responsibility for your own self.
You keep coming back to responsibility.
Yeah.
And I use this, and the left does not like me for this.
No, because right now they're totally not taking responsibility.
Well, and I'm friends with a lot of bad people, and they're like, "Oh, but this person did." I'm like, "But why doesn't that person? But why doesn't he or she do that to me?"
Right. You know, that's interesting you say that, because at a certain point in my relationship, I just told my wife, I'm not talking to your ex-husband anymore. I don't care if he's your daughter's husband. Like, I'm done with the guy. Mm-hmm. I've just had it, you know? And since then I haven't talked to him. Mm-hmm. And she has this sort of mushy, ill-defined, well, okay, I want to break away, but I feel like I got to, like, no, she's over 18 now.
Mhm.
She's 21. You don't have to talk to this guy anymore.
Mhm.
But here's the thing. It requires a level of self-accountability. It requires a level of like, this is the thing I'm saying and committing to. It
Mhm.
requires a level of responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think because a lot of people have a adverse reaction to the word responsibility. And what the phrasing that I'm really starting to love is to raising your standards. So not behavior, not action, but raising your
Right.
life standards.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's all we could really get sort of conspiratorial at this point, and because there is really high utility for those who seek to benefit from your apathy, which I would say you might say like that would be the what are they calling it now, the bureaucratic state, the permanent government, that's not the elected people but the bureaucrats. To the extent that we might say yes, they might have some sort of an agenda, and no, it might not be in our best interest. We could say that they benefit from fostering this sort of sense of like blame and the binary of victim and tormentor and all of this stuff. They don't benefit from people being self-actualized and taking responsibility and raising the standards of what they expect and demand. I think that also is a condemnation right now, in a fleeting moment in time, of the left. Now, bear in mind, somebody's going to watch this at some point and get all freaked out, and you're just proving my point when you do that, because I was enculturated into a true liberal ideal, orthodoxy, right? And it was taken to an extreme, but the real political values that I was taught and do agree with are like social equality for everyone, fiscal responsibility and all that stuff. And I am also old enough that I remember a time when the political right were the raging lunatics, and so it's really weird to have seen where it seemed like the right wouldn't take responsibility for anything. And now, to me, like, the right is personified by people who are self-accountable, and maybe not across the board, but like, and more the constituents, right? The politicians are just sort of reading the terrain and speaking what the people want to hear. But the left is like abdicated all responsibility. Everything
Yeah.
they're doing now is this bizarre theater.
Yeah, and what I might have used this example previously, but left politics, and I have a lot of criticism of right politics too. So because when we get into Christianity and religion and their purity, like, miss me with all of that too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, couldn't care less about that.
Like the self-righteousness.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm no, again, because no, just again, the religious aspect is not appealing to me. While acknowledging a higher power is very appealing to me.
Mhm.
But if I would consider, like, if I'm dabbling in religion, it's most with the old gods, right? We're talking about the Norse gods, with the Slavic gods, who are also very violent, not just fucking purity, love, and
Right.
everything is because of
Yeah.
like, they are more like, let's take matter into our own hands. And if there's a bad person, I don't want to use very, very bad words to get us banned, like, well, we fucking hang them, right? Like, I'm all for that too. But the left politics is like, it's like the nation is in a house, and outside of the house we have a lot of shit going on: tornado, hurricane, winter, whatever. And we are and we have actually foreign people trying to get into the house,
Right.
and
Right.
we're discussing the color cabinets of the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
The kitchen is not going to exist anymore, and the
Right.
color is irrelevant.
It's like if the house was on fire and instead of putting it out, you're arguing over how it started.
Right. Or even like,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, the fire is there, but what about my new bedroom?
Yeah.
Your bedroom is not going to be there in a bit.
That's right. geez, there's so much that I want to like. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like we need to move this time to
Mhm.
like an open question. And I'm gonna ask you a question. I want everyone to, when did you, or how did the activity of responsibility was activated within you? Or when did you make the choice to go into it?
For me, it was literally the day I got sober. It was literally the day I got sober. So for me, when I got sober, it was because my drug using, drug dealing, low grade, low rent criminal lifestyle, it led me to the inevitable conclusion where, in my case, I was literally talking about hunting someone down and shooting them. And
Mm.
you know, I'll never forget that moment because it's like I could see myself from outside of myself.
Mhm.
And I knew one thing, which was I was not going to follow through with that.
Mm.
And so the only way I could feel, I could think of, sort of imagine was, well, I got to disappear from this whole life. And I
Mm.
did that. I literally vanished from the town I lived in. I didn't go back there for 20 years.
Mhm.
So I, by some miracle, some act of God, I got a ride back to my mom's house of all places. I showed up on her door, spun out on meth, crying with 2 little boxes of material possessions. And that was it. The next day I went to my first meeting, you know, still tweaked. And I had this experience where it was like, I don't care if you want to tell me I have to believe in God. I don't care if you want to tell me I have to believe in the Easter Bunny. I don't care if you want, whatever you say, I'm in, because I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I'm done. That was way too close for me. And so everything that I was exposed to in AA and NA,
Mhm.
I just took
Mhm.
it all. I was like,
Mm.
all of this, I don't care how preposterous it seems to me. I'll do it. And I mean, you can't get sober without taking responsibility. It's
Yeah.
absolutely the foundational piece.
Yeah.
That, and this idea, like we touched on earlier, of being willing to put yourself in a deferential position to a power higher than you. Fortunately for them and for me, they said, you can choose. We don't care what it is. You can call it God, you can call it dog. Like, it just doesn't matter. What you've got to
About
do,
universe,
yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah. What you've got to do is make that 180-degree switch, because addicts are in very real ways, they're more extreme versions of most people. Most
Well,
people are running around with a lot of pain, a lot of unresolved trauma. It makes them act in certain ways.
yeah.
And addicts just sort of take it to the nth degree.
Right. And because addicts use external substances, and I think that the majority of the people are addicted to their own hormones, or the creation of their own, right,
Yeah,
dysregulation or
yeah, yeah,
adrenaline or
yeah.
whatever it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get addicted to, let's say,
Cortisol.
the empty dopamine hit of being right, you know,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
social media totally perpetuates.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you just get addicted to all of these things. Some people get addicted to sex, to food, to gambling, to drugs. But at the bottom of it all, like, if you go to any anonymous group, they change the sort of superficial layers to fit the addiction and its behaviors, but the core spiritual ideas are always the same.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. Yeah.
always the same. You've got to
Yeah.
turn your will and your life over to the care of, and this is how they put it, a God of your understanding.
Oh, nice. I
And
like
I'm
that.
like, I'm in,
Yeah.
you know. And then it's
I
like you have to do a searching and fearless moral inventory. And every time you find someone you've wronged, you have to be willing to make amends. Then you have to share your whole list with another person. My list was 246 people long. It was page after page after page. And then, you know, from there, it's just about this is a dramatic oversimplification, but it's about learning how to take responsibility.
Mhm.
It really is. At the bottom of it all is, stop blaming other people for your situation. Stop blaming other people for your complaints. You know, yes, they fucked you over. Yes, that did happen. Still stop blaming them.
I'm also just a random brain fart. This week when I was in Mount Shasta, there's like the only bookstore. There's a spiritual bookstore. There's no normal bookstore, just a
Right.
spiritual bookstore.
Yeah.
And there was a display of the love languages, but
Mhm.
the guy made a new book, the apology languages, which I ordered, which I
Interesting.
think like that's because that's. And I'm just going to use my mom as example. My mom, whenever she would do me wrong, she would never say sorry, but she would like
Right.
cook me my favorite food.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Sweep it under
bitch,
the
when you
rug.
gonna say
Yeah.
sorry?
Yeah.
Right? Because my
Sweep it
words,
under the
my
rug.
love language is positive words.
Yeah.
And I just don't even think like the part of responsibility when we apologize or even acknowledge, right?
Mhm.
Like we're not talking about that enough.
Right.
So I love that what you told me about like in the AA, we have to make a list and amends.
Yeah.
of
You
some
make
sort.
amends, except
Yeah.
when to do so would harm the other person
Yeah.
or others. Now, I will say this: when it comes to apologies,
hmm
there seems to be a pretty consistent. So there's a couple of things here. One thing is for a parent to have a healthy, safe bond with their kid, they only have to get it right 30% of the time, which really is an indictment of a lot of our parents, and a lot of us, I bet. So 3 out of 10 times that you as a parent call the wrong audible in parenting your kid, come back and correct course. 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
So with my family, my mom and my siblings, nobody ever really got in and had the conversations. However, and this is very slippery because they're all sort of like self-identified as these spiritually developed people, they'd have these very fake conversations, these very like in their head, insincere, formula
The
following.
theory is pretty.
Yeah, right. But there's no meaningful sort of energy exchange of, hey, I fucked up there. And so I'm not familiar with the Apology Languages book, but broadly speaking, I would say there's almost no one for whom making their favorite meal instead of really owning your shit is going to work. Over time, you just need, I think, you need that sitting down and going, look, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I wish, I was wrong.
I wonder, and this is an open question because I'm just, exploring as we go about this. I wonder how, because I would say in the end, as an adult right now, right, that intent matters. And I don't need the words that if the intent is clean or correct or matching, I don't need the words to describe the intent. And so I wonder how many times love languages are a mismatch just because, but in that case, also apology languages, like just the communication language, right? Because, and using my mom as example, my mom's love language was buying gifts. And I couldn't care fucking less about gifts, right? I'm a positive words person or affirmation. So she would, in her way, like she would, to her own detriment, prostitute herself out and would come back with all of these beautiful gifts. And all I'm saying is like, can you tell me my hair is nice or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, but so as a younger person, I would have perceived that as my mom didn't love me, but my mom clearly did love me, but her love language was completely mismatched to a way that it would fulfill my love language.
Yeah, I think it's smart to leave that as an open question. I think that's the whole reason that the love languages idea was so successful, is because we all seem to assume that whatever we want is what the other person wants.
And gender ones is a great example. Men have usually physical touch as a love language, right? And women either provided for, again, or positive words. And then the man is like, I'm trying to like sex you up or whatever, right? And the woman's like, don't fucking touch me. That, you never say I'm beautiful again or something like that, right? And I'm like, everyone's just pushing their love language and legit the intention is there.
Yeah. I mean, the intention, well, we assume, let's say this, the intention is there more often than it's probably given credit for.
Yes, 100. Yes, nice one. Nice.
But it really matters how you say it, right?
Yeah.
Or how you
Yeah.
express it. It really matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's, man, I come back to this thing about how like relationships are I think the function of long-term, especially relationships, is just so badly misunderstood. You know, there was the church sanctioned strategic marriage thing and let love kind of grow from the marriage. And more, I think that's probably as good as the fall in love and get married thing. In fact, I think that the arranged marriages might have a better track record of longevity. I'm not sure. I think so. But for me, it was so helpful to be given the perspective that these are really containers within which, and I use the word lucky carefully, if you're lucky, you get a chance to grow and develop. You know, but here's the thing, growth and development is almost always uncomfortable. It's almost always hard.
It is.
And so, you know, yay, that's what relationships are for on the one hand. Yeah. But on the other hand, I think part of the reason that people bail so often is because this shit ain't for the faint of heart. It just ain't for the faint of heart.
It's not for the faint of heart. And I'm quiet now because I'm thinking back of my own former relationships, which there's a combination of, and I didn't have the skills in that moment to choose healthy partners. One.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then I've went through a phase where I had chosen healthy partners, but our life dreams or goals did not align, right? So we healthily still grew out of each other, but there's still, even then, there's friction, right? Because like, why don't you just come with my dreams?
Yeah.
And then there's an aspect where it's like, yes to a healthy person, and or a willing person, and how comfortable am I with holding my own shit?
Yeah. Yeah. And look at that. At some point it always goes inward.
You have to.
You have to.
And the thing that in hindsight, was it right to step out, or is it right to step out? Like, that's only in hindsight, right? Because if you just stayed longer, 2 more months, it could have been a golden moment, or it would have never come, and you should have left 3 years ago, right? Like, who knows?
That's one of the real motherfuckers of that kind of thing, is like, there's so many things actually in life, but certainly in relationships, that you can only see from behind.
Yeah. It's the crazy versus genius
in
hindsight.
It's exactly. It's the same thing. It's it's the you can't get there from here thing, you know. And somehow, even though it's impossible, somehow some of us get there, and then we can see it. And that now we're talking also about like the challenge of raising kids, because most conscientious parents could probably solve most of the problems their kids have. But then the kid and again, I think this is hardwired into the human condition for some reason I don't understand. The kid will absolutely not let you solve their problems for them, but they will ask you to solve their problems for them. And so it's like, there are so many of these things that you have to go through it to see it. Man, I wish that weren't the case, but I suspect that in the same way. So I have this theory, and this theory might just be a theory of convenience. I'm not sure, but I suspect that, and this is a horrible thing to say if you don't catch the intent, for whatever reason, we're supposed to be somewhat traumatized as kids.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, I hate the words coming out of my mouth.
No,
but when you look at the whole sort of way that humans are raised. Yeah.
But this is the thing, there is no golden formula,
right?
Because it's, for one, it's personality independent, and like, we talk about genes, right? Like, so it's gene independent. Like, how much tough love do I push and create?
Right.
Or a freedom to have my kid, explore, versus when does that become when does that kid become feeling abandoned?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
no
You
golden.
don't know. You don't
No.
know. Yeah.
And therefore I would like to end this like at the open question: where can we take more responsibility, and where can we give more grace towards others that we deem worthy?
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to fucking pull out grace like Oprah's pulling out cars, right? Like, but where do we need to give more grace towards those we feel have or are wronging us?
If you guys have the courage, answer that question in the comments. I
Yeah.
would love, and we will read them all. We would love to know
Yeah.
what you think. That's a great way to end it. Let's take some accountability.
Let's do it.
All right. Bye, everybody.